Hey, it's Christopher Cardinal, and you're listening to the super fantastic, above average racing spectacular. Hi, and this is Christopher Cardinal. How are you? I hope everyone's doing well out there, and this is episode number 4 of our podcast. Thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying what we're doing and the content we're bringing out to you each and every week. And first off, I just want to take this opportunity to apologize to all the listeners out there. We didn't get the bonus episode, the Dover MBNA 400 from 2001 at Dover. Some tornadoes swept through the region over the weekend. So it left a pretty dark weekend. Cast a shadow over much of the city in Ontario, Canada. So a little upset about that we didn't get that out to you. But the good news is I will be honoring that commitment. I'm going to record that episode this weekend. So the weekend of the 29th to the 30th, I'll have that bonus episode coming your way, and as well as the 1998 race from Martinsville in the fall where Ricky Rudd was victorious, keeping his winning streak alive. So those two will be coming your way. In addition to this program you're listening to right now, 2 more bonus episodes this coming weekend. I hope you get fired up about that. In addition to the Roval, the mysterious enigma that is the Roval, makes its anticipated, long-awaited debut at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and this is the final race of the playoff, the first round. So the round of 16 will be shortened to the round of 12 by the end of Sunday. You got 4 drivers who got their back to the wall at this moment: Clint Boyer, Rick Jones, Jimmy Johnson, and Denny Hamlin. I'll tell you momentarily who I think could escape the Roval and advance to the next round, and who is going to be finished for 2018 championship hopes up in flames for those drivers. I think one's going to squeak in. I know it sounds crazy, but out of those 4, I think one will get through. I'll tell you who I think it could be, but we'll get to that in a moment. So we're just going to do the aftermath from Richmond that went down on Saturday while I was in the dark. I didn't get a chance to see the race, but I did see the highlights, and it was a very entertaining race from what I saw from the highlights. And Kyle Busch wins big, 50 wins in his career, and wow, that's just remarkable. Kyle Busch continues to cement his legacy. Surefire future Hall of Famer, first ballot, if you ask me. Now he's in the 50-win club. Pretty exclusive club to be in, to win 50 wins in the NASCAR Cup Series. Round of applause for Mr. Busch. Mighty impressive, sir. So this win for him, as I said, it's his 50th career win. It puts him 11th all-time on the career wins list. Just behind now 4 from Lee Petty, from the legendary Petty family, the Petty clan, and 5 behind Rusty Wallace. And Rusty Wallace, as I said, we talked a lot about Brad Keselowski in our previous episodes as we started this podcast when he went on his hot streak. We're not going to talk about Brad K today. Sorry, Brad K fans. 55, to me, the greatest driver in Penske history. Surefire, he's a Hall of Famer, Rusty Wallace. I think we made that comparison and contrast a couple weeks ago. Brad K, is he the greatest Penske driver? Well, still not yet, but anyhow, Kyle Busch is right behind these guys. He's just about to make history. I'm not sure if he's going to catch Rusty or Lee Petty this year, but definitely next season. The march to 60 now. So for Busch now, he's tied for 3rd on the list of the youngest drivers to reach 50 wins in Cup. He's tied for 3rd with Ned Jarrett, the legendary broadcaster driver. He reached the feat the same time Busch did at age 33. Second on that list is the king of NASCAR, Richard Petty, also from the famous Petty clan, 29 when he did that, and the guy in first place to do that, to make history, and he broke a lot of records and rewrote the history books in his time. It was Jeff Gordon. was 28 years of age when he captured win number 50, and he went on to have a legendary Hall of Fame career. And in my opinion, I know it's going to raise the ire of some of the Dale Earnhardt Sr. followers out there. The loyal Dale Earnhardt Sr. followers. She has a loyal fan base, as we know, one of the most popular drivers in NASCAR, an iconic driver. That's why with the black number 3. I think Jeff Gordon is the greatest driver of my generation. I think I didn't get a chance to see a lot of the greats from the past compete. We see old footage, but when you actually live something and you're there, you're experiencing, you're going through the time zones and you're going through periods of time where you're actually seeing history unfold in front of your eyes. I didn't get a chance to see that with some of the names I just listed off there, but I've seen it with Kyle Busch and with Jeff Gordon for most of Jeff Gordon's career, and it's quite remarkable. And I think you never quite can appreciate a driver's talents till you actually see what they've accomplished on the track. And year after year, it's the longevity. It's remaining consistent year after year and competing at a high level. And I think that's what's most important. What the names I just read did, especially Gordon and Kyle Busch. I know Kyle Busch. This was his 7th win of 2018. 10 years ago, he had 8. 2008. So this is the most he's achieved since 2008, where he had 8, as we talked about 8. Yeah, he could have 8 by the end. He could have 9 by the end of this year. I think he still has a few more wins in him. He's likely going to go to the Final Four. I think I'm penciling him in the Final Four. So he likes to play the role of, again, he plays to the crowd so well to piss you people off. The haters out there, the people that, well, I don't like Kyle Busch. He means counter time. Stop your whining. And it's time to marvel in the greatness that is Kyle Busch. Please. The guy plays the villain. He plays the heel. He's a heel. Goddamn motherfucker. Oh, to Jim Cornette there. He plays the heel role to get you people going. Kind of the idea. You're supposed to hate him. That's why he's a heel. Busch has really elevated his game, I think, since the injury that sidelined him for a couple months there in 2015, when the year he won the championship. And a lot of you complained about that because of the way that they set up the points now and the way the playoffs unfold, where previous years he would have been eligible to compete for a championship. And it just seemed to be the master motivator for Kyle Busch. It seemed to light a fire underneath him, and he'd been rolling off victories handedly since. And so the big 3 up to their little hijinks again. Just when you thought the big 3, Penske had them on the ropes, it's like Rocky and Drago, and you think Rocky's going down for the count. He just gets that little bit of adrenaline and comes back, and the big 3 are back at it. Good for them. Harvick in second, runner up to Kyle Busch. Martin Truex Jr., another solid performance, 3rd place for him. Mighty impressive. He has been just absolutely on a roll since Furniture Row announced they were done with NASCAR. So like I said, Busch really relishes playing the heel. And some of the smart marks don't buy into it. But some of you passionate fans, we love that. We love passion. We love someone who is passionate about the sport they follow. It's the same thing if you wear your jersey on Sunday to hopefully root for the Carolina Panthers, but if you root for someone else, that's awesome too. You wear your caps, you rally behind your team, and some of the sports fans out there are very passionate about their team and who they choose to root for, and that's fine. You can. It's absolutely your choice. You have the freedom to do that. However, to get on Kyle Busch for his antics, he's playing the role of the heel to piss you off. And some people, I think, just take it just a little too far with Kyle Busch. I think he has said as far as Xfinity goes, it doesn't bother me. It never bothered me. I know bushwhacking, as they call it, or what, I don't know. They even call them the Truck Series, where a lot of the top guys from Cup will come in and dominate and take the checkered flag in Xfinity or the trucks. It pisses a lot of you people off, and I just don't see why. These drivers are competitive. It doesn't matter what you're racing for. And we talked about with Harvick and Ross Chastain tangled at Darlington. It was a great opportunity for Chastain to take the checkered flag. He did at Vegas. So, you know what? Racing karma, it came around for him. But how many people got on Harvick that weekend? These guys are going to continue to do it. They've limited the races they can do now. So I think it's time we stop bitching and moaning about Kyle Busch and Harvick and whomever, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski running Xfinity Series races. They're going to run them. They're going to run a limited amount each year. And anytime, yes, a name of that magnitude is in the field, they have an excellent opportunity to win the race. Let's not hate on them for it. The Xfinity Series actually is taking a turn for the better. It's doing a complete 180. Look how good the Xfinity race. I don't watch the Xfinity much. I'll mind you. I'll flick into it. I'll have a look at the highlights. I stopped watching that series years ago. And not to be hypocritical, but much for the reason why a lot of you people don't like that series is the Cup guy's going to win anyway. So why are we watching this? But you guess, a driver like Justin Allgaier, who went back and now could be a candidate for Cup ride, having a phenomenal Daniel Hemric, who we're going to talk about a lot in this episode today. He's in line for a Cup ride. You have Elliott Sadler revived his career and a great run in Xfinity. Daniel Suarez, who moved up, the 16 champion, who moved up the Cup a year later. So we're seeing stars emerge. Eric Jones, Cole Custer. We're seeing, we've seen big names come out of that series, or having Ross Chastain, let's put him in that category too, are making the most of their opportunities in Xfinity and working their way up and going head to head with the Cup guys. Good on them. Absolutely, completely behind them 100%. And what an accomplishment. Even if it's an Xfinity Series that you're running neck and neck with a Cup guy. What that does for a driver's psyche and that does for his confidence, over the moon. And I think the Xfinity Series is trending in the right direction. So let's not focus so much on Kyle Busch winning all the races. Kevin Harvick. Is Harvick being Harvick again? Here he is. Back in the top 5 where he belongs following his debacle at Vegas. He stumbled at Vegas. Yes, he finished. That's one of the worst finishes Harvick's had in a number of years. He's likely to advance. He's just going to start the race. He's in. His championship dreams will soldier on as they should. As we said, Martin Truex Jr., 2 consecutive top 3 finishes to start the playoffs. Impressive. I think we talked a lot about toward the end of the summer, heading into the playoffs, was he off his game? Was the focus off because of the announcement that we got nothing to lose, nothing to gain, really? Oh, they have everything to. Okay, let's rephrase that. They have everything to gain. Winning a second championship, that's a great way to exit the sport. And Furniture Row Racing has done a marvelous job. I've said it. I've sung the praises of this team 3-4 years now, and it's absolutely incredible what it's done for Truex's career, how we see him now. He's an elite driver, as he was just a middle-of-the-pack guy. And Furniture Row really was the American dream, was it not? Starting from humble beginnings and achieving success to the highest degree. That's the true definition of the American dream, in my opinion. And Barney Visser and Furniture Row did that. Just that. They defied the odds and enjoyed success and won a championship in Cup. Mighty impressive. So they're dangerously close to winning here. It won't be long. I think the Roval is such an enigma and such a wild card that Truex Jr. could win at the Roval. He won at Charlotte last year in the fall. Different surface this time around, but these things they tend to stay with the driver. They tend to carry over into the next season. And I think Truex JR. here is getting dangerously close. He advances, by the way, by virtue of those solid third place finishes. And I think he's going to win. If he doesn't win the Roval, he's advanced anyhow. Dover's coming up, tracks, Kansas, tracks he's known to win at. In Talladega, anything can happen, right? So we just call that for what it is. Truex JR. is going to win another few races before the season's out. He's going to send Frontrunner off on the right foot. I don't see him in the Final Four. I'll be honest with you. I didn't mark him in to my Final Four. I still don't believe he's going to be there. But he leads 162 laps here. Benchmark of consistency. Consistency wins championships. We that old adage we talk about now, winning, and that is in a form of itself consistency. You necessarily don't always have to win. The best car doesn't always win the championship. We talked about this ad nauseum a few weeks back, and Truex JR. is on a mission to make Furniture Rose Swan Song a smashing success. It's going to be a chart topper, hopefully. Just like Debbie Gibson and Lost in Your Eyes. What a fantastic song. A beautiful song that is. Roll Tide, Debbie Gibson. Chase Elliott, 4th place. So he bounces back. What a resilient guy, Chase. Chase Elliott is like... It's just like... I don't want to... How can I make this? To me, he's like a really good pack of bubble gum. You keep chewing, and the flavor just lingers. It's resilient. It's resistant. It just continues to, it won't quit. And I think his nature, his consistency he's put up this year to get to this position. And I think he's in the Final Four. Spoiler alert, he's in my Final Four. That resilient nature, I think, is what's going to advance him to the next round. I know he looks to be in good shape. If he has some issues with the Roval, he could be behind, could have his back to the wall, but I just can't see this happening. I think Chase Elliott is going to be okay. He runs okay on road courses, so I think he's going to be just fine. Nice bounce back for him. Could have unraveled his season. The bad finish at Vegas. He rallies here. Strong 4th place at Richmond. And Aric Almirola. Last week, and I called this. I'm not tooting my horn here or anything. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to give you my insight, my analysis. That's what I do. I analyze what you see in the track week in and week out. But Aric Almirola, every year we have coming out parties in the championship chase, or the playoffs, if you will. It's one driver who will, and I think this could be said for his season. Aric Almirola has done a phenomenal job. It's been sensational at Stewart-Haas Racing. Quite a good fit for him. I was skeptical. Okay, I'll go back. When I heard about this last year, and I think I touched on this last week too. I was a bit skeptical. Middle of the pack guy. Has shown flashes of brilliance on the track, and here he is back at Richmond. As I said, remember he was fighting in the dying laps of the race at Richmond in 2015 to make the playoffs. That had been his second consecutive year. Had a top 5 that night, comes home 5th here, and I thought he was one of the drivers to watch. I said, keep your eyes on Aric Almirola. Gets around Richmond really well. He probably wanted to channel some of that 2015 Aric Almirola, and he comes home 5th. He's likely going to advance to the second round now. He's been, if anything, just a tick behind Harvick at Stewart-Haas. I think where Kurt Busch has sort of cooled off since the playoffs started. He was going into the playoffs really under the radar, super consistent. Good for him. And Boyer now finds himself facing elimination. So Aric Almirola has been the second best Stewart-Haas car over the last 2 weeks. So he went from one of these things doesn't look like the other to really belonging. And I think this is his breakout year. He's only going to get better in year 2. I think developing the chemistry, getting used to being at Stewart-Haas, Aric Almirola is trending in the right direction, and he could be one of those guys we're sleeping on now. He could turn into like a Truex, a guy that we just kind of, he's kind of there, good. But Eric Almirola could be on the verge of superstardom, and I think it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I think Eric Almirola is a great driver. Should have won Loudon. Should be in the winner's circle this year. If he doesn't get into the winner's circle at the Roval, I expect him to run really well. I don't know if he'll win this season. He could win the season finale at Homestead. I mean, he ran really well there almost a decade ago with Richard Petty Motorsports when he was subbing for Casey Kane at the time. I'm a huge fan of Eric Almirola. I love to see him do well, and I love to see this 10 car do well. This 10 car, honestly, was... And I love Danica Patrick. I really do. Danica Patrick, I'll be the first to admit I'm a Danica Patrick mark. But this car has come a long way since Danica, and that's what Stuart Haas Racing was looking for. They could have kept the Danica experiment going, and I'm not sure what her plans really were, because if you read between the lines, which we rumor and innuendo things a lot in pro sports and in these kind of situations, but you get the feeling she wasn't really committed to this long term anyhow. So if the sponsorships would have panned out, the Nature's Bakery debacle didn't happen, if there was full support to continue this team with Danica as the driver, you were seeing small steps of but at this point, Almirola is a good fit for this car. He's riding a wave of momentum. He's 6th in the standings going into the Roval, and can't say enough about the job he has done in the 10 this year. Absolutely marvelous. So all 16 playoff drivers, they finished inside the top 20. So no one really had any issues that put them in harm's way going into the Roval. Everyone is intact. But there are 4 drivers, they said, facing elimination. Clint Bowyer, he's 4 points from the cutoff of 12th place where Ryan Blaney is. Boyer's in a unique position here where his season, this is one of his best seasons he's had in a while. He's found the winner's circle twice this season when he couldn't find it for 6 years. So what this did for his confidence last year, he was building to this last year with Stuart Haas, much like Eric Almirola did this year. Building that up, making the playoffs, getting yourself in a position where you're familiarizing yourself with your team, developing chemistry with your crew chief. So you're building something for the future, not necessarily now. Bowyer, I think, out of the 3 drivers, okay, here's what I have to say. Out of the 4 drivers facing elimination, I'm going to say Bowyer has the best chance out of the 4. I know you think it's Jimmy John, but wait. He won at Charlotte, albeit on a different surface. It was the oval, traditional Charlotte Motor Speedway track in 2012. It was his final win until he got to this year. And I think he's going to have some of that magic in the air. You tend to know where you're strongest, and he could ride off that momentum. I could see Ryan Blaney slipping up. Alex Bowman is not safe either. 2 drivers. I know Blaney's been here before. This is his 2nd playoff appearance consecutively. Or if the pressure just could get to Bowman too. Bowman is not, I don't know his stats on a road course. I didn't comb through those records too extensively this week. But Bowman, I think, is nowhere near safe either. He could find himself out of this thing. And the cutoff, I said 4 points. Clint Bowyer, he has a good day. I could see him advancing. Johnson, he's 6 points from the cutoff. The mighty Jimmy Johnson. I just think Johnson is one of those guys where before we get to him, let's just finish with Bowyer here. I think Bowyer has run poorly. He hasn't really run poorly. The Vegas race was his crutch. He was 23rd. He tumbled from 5th to 13th in the points. Like I said, if he can capture some of that past magic from Charlotte, where he won into fall of 2012, granted it is a different surface, Bowyer's going to advance. I think Bowyer has a tremendous opportunity to make it. It's 50-50 for him. I just could see out of the 4 names that have their back to the wall, I'm picking him to advance. If those guys at all, if any of those 4 at all advance. So Johnson, the 8-time Charlotte winner. At one point, Lowe's is sponsored had the name was Lowe's Motor Speedway. So this is Johnson's house at one point. He was so dominant there, and 4 of those 8 wins came in the fall race. Again, different surface. We're not talking about the Roval is something completely new to everyone. So no top 5 finishes in Charlotte in May. So again, he's going back to the place where he last finished in the top 5. Could that spark some kind of momentum for him? Could that conjure up some old memories, some old Jimmy Johnson magic? Is there a little bit of Jimmy dust in the air at Charlotte? I don't know. Johnson here, as painful as this for me to say, has had an off year. May go winless this year for the first time in his career. Uncharacteristic if that were to happen. I mean, he's won a race every year since his rookie season in 2002. To see him not in the winner's circle, it'd just be like you wake up Christmas Day. There's no presents underneath that tree. It's like clockwork. You figure this is going to be something that's automatic. It happens. Seasons change year after year. Everything's permanent except change, but this is one constant: is Jimmy Johnson and the 48 and Chad Knaus, the crew chief, finding ways to win. After this race, they have 7 more if they don't win the Roval. But if anything, Johnson, as I said, history on his side. He's done it all in the Cup Series. Why not win the first race of the Roval? Johnson, unfortunately, I think we're gonna put you in the pit, my friend, for this time, and you're not gonna advance. That's what I think is gonna happen. But in any case, how the mighty have fallen sometime. He could be in for a bounce back next season. But for now, I think Jimmy Johnson is going home. He will not be competing for title number 8 past Sunday. And Erik Jones. Give a call, Erik Jones. Great season. First season in the 20 car. Lots of pushback from the loyal faithful of Matt Kenseth and other fans who, didn't want Jones in this car. And I'll be honest, I was indifferent on this one too. But Jones has done a great job. He's found the winner's circle. That's how he got here. The 40th place, it just really took the wind out of their sails. That destroyed any chance he had of making the second round, in my opinion. Came into the playoffs, like I said, riding one hell of a wave of momentum. He was second at Indianapolis, on the pole at Vegas. Just the wind got taken out of this team's sails in one race. And since Pocono July race, he's finished no worse than 13. So Erik Jones has put together solid finishes week after week. He's been in contention. But for one reason, the way the format is now, one bad race can set you back light years. And it just feels like here, Erik Jones made a great accounting of himself this season. This is something, again, for futuristic. I don't think Jones... No one's picking Jones to win the championship this year. No one's even picking him for the Final Four. This is a learning experience for him. He's going to gain a lot of valuable seat time behind the 20 car and then these next 7 races after the Roval. And I think this is something to build on for next season. Something to go back on and say, this is what we did. Here's how we're going to do this different in 19. Jones is in a good position overall. I think the future is mighty bright for Mr. Jones, and unfortunately 2018 will not be the year that Erik Jones hits pay dirt and moves on from this year's playoffs. Denny Hamlin, miserable season is about to end for Hamlin, I think. No wins. This is not the latest he's gone into a season without a win. He won the finale at Homestead one year to save himself from the dubious distinction of not winning a race in a season. But that, we talked about Johnson in his rookie year of 2002, won a race in each season. Hamlin's done the same since 2006. That streak's in serious jeopardy right now. It's just been, we talked about our friend Bubba Wallace and the cruel summer. Well, it's been a really cruel summer for Denny Hamlin. His last top 5 was at Charlotte in May. Again, can he do the same thing Johnson did? Last time Johnson was here, top 5 in May. Different surface. I know that's the traditional oval. This is the Roval. Maybe there's some Hamlin dust in the air, like Johnson does, Jimmy does. Could Hamlin harness some of that, convert that, get himself in there? He's basically got to win this race, is what we're saying. For any chance for Hamlin to advance, he's got to win the Roval. And I'm just not seeing that. I think his streak of winning a race since 2006 is in serious jeopardy. He's never won a race at Charlotte in any capacity. So Hamlin is at a place where he's run well, though. But here's the upside. There's always a however. There's never a completely this is the end all the be all. He's finished in the top 5 in his last 5 out of 6 races at Charlotte on the oval structure. Like I said, kind of piggyback off that. Just something in the air in Charlotte where he runs fairly well. Hasn't won, but has run fairly well. If he can try to find, and I take a gamble. If you're Hamlin, you've got nothing to lose, right? Everything to gain here. All or nothing. Stay out. Try to use pit strategy. Pull an upset. Do this, Danny Hamlin. I think you can do this, but I'm realistic. And if I'm motivating you, I'm telling you can do this, but in actuality, I'm saying you're not going to do it. I think the miserable season that is for him comes to a crashing halt. No championship glory in 2018. The championship hopes for JGR will rely all on Kyle Busch, as they should, because he has been the cream of the crop at Joe Gibbs Racing for a very long time. So now, news items. Here we are. We're just going to shift some gears here and put Richmond in our rearview mirror. And here we are to some news items. And no spoiler here. I connected the pieces of the puzzle last week when Bain was officially released from the number 6 car, and Ryan Newman announced his intentions with RCR. And here they are. They're paired up. They've announced it at Richmond. It's official. The Rocket Man is launching his career into the next stratosphere with the famous iconic number 6 at Roush Fenway Racing. As I said, 1 week removed from his departure from RCR, he has signed on to drive the iconic number 6. This will be the 6th driver to pilot the 6 car. There's a little omen there, a little foreshadowing. I don't know. So Newman will pilot the 6 car. There's the other 6 drivers. If you want to know the other 5, I'll tell you. As we all know, Mark Martin, the most famous driver, I think everyone will connect to the 6 car, will remember. He ran that car from 88 to 2006, collected 35 of his career wins. Reagan from 2007 to 2011. He got the 1 win, that wild Coke 0400 finish in 2011. Who could forget that? That was one hell of a race. Very fondly. We're going to cover that race sometime on this program, no doubt. Stenhouse Jr. in 2012 ran the car, the number 6, for 4 races. And then we know of Bain from 15 to 18. And Kenseth ran the car this year in 2018. So the glory days have faded away for Roush Fenway Racing. They're not quite the force they once were, the force to be reckoned with. So Newman adds that veteran presence. I think that's something that Roush Fenway's lacked, and that's why they brought Kenseth in. Let's not call it for what it is. That's why Matt Kenseth was brought in, was for nostalgia, for one, but it was to send a jolt of electricity through this team. This team was dying. And I don't think Trevor Bain was doing that horrible of a job either. It just, I think for some reason Jack Roush felt that he needed to change the infrastructure here and make some changes with the 6 car. Insert Kenseth. Kenseth has not really set the world ablaze in this car either. He's struggled as bad as Bain has. So Newman brings in that winning culture, I think. He hasn't had a lot of it lately himself. I think that's why his future has been in doubt for the past few years for RCR. Is he coming back? Is he not coming back? And Caterpillar's firmly behind him. His sponsors. And that's the thing why people ask, well, a lot of great young drivers out there, why would somebody choose Newman? Well, Newman still can get it done behind the wheel. I still think he's got a couple wins left in him. Newman is a racer's racer. Highly competitive person. Remarkable talent. And again, it's a change of scenery. What's the worst that could happen? Driver and team. So Roush Fenway, we all know their story. They're on the mend. They've struggled mightily this year. Stenhouse had the breakout year last year to 2 wins, makes the playoffs. So we think they're on, the upswing. We think that Roush Fenway Racing's got their issues sorted out. It's not the case. They took, in my opinion, 6 steps forward last year. Now they're taking 12 back. Kenseth, as I said, brought in as a bandage to kind of cover up the wounds. That did nothing for the 6 car. And it's just been a tough year. As I said, Bain, to me, was forced out of that car. And it's not like performance was all that bad. He was actually in the... For what it's worth, anyhow, Bain was in the conversation. He was fluttering around the playoff scene there 2 consecutive years. Could have been one of those drivers that, made it in on points. Just a little more consistency out of him. Could have made it in at least once on points, not wins. But that's over. So Kenseth, aside from, he stepped aside from this car willingly. This is by his choice. He's not going to return. Chances are he was probably offered this opportunity to race full time for them in 19. Kenseth is taking a step back. Could run some races. Indicated he only wants to run for Jack Roush. He's not interested in running full time or with anyone else. He wants to do it at some capacity. Maybe they'll run a 3rd car for select races for Kenseth. I am not sure what the case is, but really, what's the worst that could happen here for Newman? Newman's had a couple rough years for RCR. We know the state of the 6 car. Nothing really great has been happening there. So the change of scenery could benefit Newman, could revitalize his career, and it brings some stability back to the number 6 car. There's just a lot of uncertainty this year in that car, and splitting it between 2 drivers, it was just bad for team morale. I can't see anyone going in or anyone working at a race shop having any kind of positivity, knowing that it's a situation of just utter chaos. Nobody's on the same page. The performance is down. The future is murky at best for this car, as I said a few weeks ago. So now they have their things sorted out. Newman has struggled mildly, as he said as himself, in 2018. I think that's what led to the departure. Just the results weren't there. He's no wins, no top 5s, the 8 top 10s. So again, he adds that veteran presence. Could really work well for Stenhouse. I think things look not that... It's not all gloom and doom for Roush Fenway Racing. I think they could turn this ship around, get this going in the right direction again. So here we go. This is the press release that was sent out officially. This is from J-Ski. Thank you for that, J-Ski. Roush Fenway Racing announced, this is on the 22nd, announced today that veteran driver, NASCAR driver, Ryan Newman, will take the reins of the iconic number 6 Ford Mustang, competing full-time for Jack Roush in the Monster Energy Cup Series in 2019. During his celebrated career, it goes on to say here, Newman has accumulated 18 victories. One of those is the 2008 Daytona 500. Thank you. 51 poles, 112 top 5 finishes, and 246 top 10 finishes, competing at NASCAR's highest level, people. Not only is it in NASCAR, but it's the highest level. Okay, thank you for that. I'm excited about and this is from a direct quote from Mr. Newman. I'm excited about getting behind the wheel of the number 6 car and working with Jack Roush and everyone at Roush Fenway Racing, said Newman, who holds an engineering degree from Purdue University. I don't know how you have to say, well, he was an engineer from little ode there to Jim Ross. Anytime the great old Jim Ross JR called a wrestling match in the WWE, he would say, oh, that guy, he went to Michigan State University. Like, no connection to professional wrestling. It's just, we'll just throw in where his collegiate career was, or where his alma mater was. I mean, it has nothing to do with wrestling, or even in this case, racing. He goes on to say, I've always respected what Jack Roush has brought to the sport, added Newman. I can remember some of the intense battles with their 6 car back when Mark Martin was in the car. There was a lot of history there. And I'm excited about getting behind the wheel of the number 6 Mustang to compete for wins and the playoffs next year. Not out of the question. I know casual fans or some smart marks will read that and shit all over that. Oh, well, Newman's washed up. Oh, the 6 car in the playoffs. Give me a break. No, it's possible. As I said, the change of scenery could breathe new life into Newman, but also that could be contagious across the whole entire organization. That could elevate this team from, again, taking those taking the 6 steps back and then 12 steps. I said that wrong. Excuse me. The 6 steps forward and 12 steps back. This could be really something. They could be on the verge of something really great here. Call for what it is. Newman, Roush Fenway. I like this combination. In any case, I'm pleased to announce that this is from Jack. I'm pleased to announce that Ryan Newman will be joining our team as the new driver of the number 6 car as a 2019 inductee to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. This is all from Roush. Ryan's accomplishments and achievements speak for themselves. So true. He is a fierce competitor and one of the top drivers in NASCAR. And it goes on to say here, Newman, a native of South Bend, Indiana, a Hoosier, becomes the 6th driver to pilot the 6 cars we mentioned, who launched his NASCAR team with fellow Hall of Famer Mark Martin behind the wheel of the number 6 in 1988. Daytona 500 winner Trevor Bayne and future Hall of Famer Matt Kenseth most recently piloted the number 6, sharing the ride for 2018. And the number 6 Ford has visited Victory Lane 36 times, as we recapped earlier, Martin and David Reagan. 41 poles and led over 11,400 laps under the Roush Fenway umbrella. And it says Newman has led over 4,800 laps and has 51 poles, are the 9th most in NASCAR history. He was named the Cup Series Rookie of the Year in 2002 and won the 2008 Daytona 500 and the 2013 Brickyard 400. He has finished inside the top 10 of the final Cup standings on 7 occasions, including a 2nd place finish in 2014. That was one hell of a race in Homestead. Just 2 more laps, 1 more lap and a half. I think he could have got Harvick. So he qualified for NASCAR's Cup playoffs on 8 different occasions since its inception in 2004, and he was named the Driver of the Year in 2003. What was one hell of a year for him in 2003, was it not? So we'll move on. Other teams had made some changes this week, and much speculated in the last couple of weeks. I didn't want to read too much into it, and it turned out that this actually did come to fruition. But JTG Daugherty, can never say that on the first try. It's always Daugherty. Anyway, they've decided to part ways with AJ Allmendinger, and to me, this one is a bummer. I like AJ Allmendinger. I think AJ Allmendinger brought a lot to NASCAR, and his longevity, I think, is something that he should take great pride in. At times, it looked like Allmendinger was going to be out of this sport, out of NASCAR, for that matter, on many occasions since his career started here. And he joined JTG Daugherty in 2013 to replace Bobby Labonte. Again, they were making a change. A veteran on the back end of his career was being shown the door here. And in his first race at Watkins Glen, he finished in 10th. And he got a really strong run at Michigan in 2013 that year. And in 5.5 years on the job, he's got 1 win at Watkins Glen. That led them to the playoffs in 14. 6 top 5s, 26 top 10s, and 2 poles. So they've been fast at times as well. The 1 playoff appearance, as we spoke of. And this is the actual press release as well from the team. So they struggled, and I'll read that in a moment, but they struggled over the last 2 seasons. Their best finish was 3rd at Daytona this year in July at the Coke Zero 400. And the same thing was his best finish last year, 3rd at the Daytona 500 in 17. So I always felt like there was pressure on Allmendinger ever since he won the race, ever since he started with JTG. There I go again. That's just the most difficult team name to say in NASCAR. JTG Daugherty. There, we got it. There was always pressure on anytime they went to Sonoma, much like Marcos Ambrose too when he was with Petty, RPM. That they cut their teeth while Ambrose in Europe and Allmendinger in America and the Open Wheel Series was always, anytime we were at Sonoma Watkins Glen, they're the odds-on favorite. This is their race. This is their one chance to make the playoffs. To me, that's a bunch of bullshit. Because I thought Marcos Ambrose and Allmendinger could win an oval. And are capable of winning them. They've had tremendous runs, especially Allmendinger. He's had tremendous runs on ovals in his career. That's why he's been in NASCAR so long. That's why the longevity, as I said. That's why he's still here. After all he went through, he's still here. We'll get to that in a moment. But when he felt let down that he couldn't get the job done at Sonoma, he put a lot of pressure on himself this year, and I thought that was really unfair. But that comes from the team. That came from this team expecting every year, well, we're going to make the playoffs because we've got A.J. Allmendinger. He's going to knock off a win at Watkins Glen or Sonoma. Irony here, and isn't ironic, really, and that's not Alanis, but that Allmendinger could win the Roval. This is a road course. Essentially, this is a modified road course. So you get shit canned, and then you're going to win the very same week. Totally unfair, but I guess at this point he's auditioning for a job. This is his chance to find another home for 2019, but we'll get to that in a moment. But I don't think it's fair. He should have felt pressure to win anytime they're at a road course, and I feel like this team signed him to an extension last year, and just how you're only as good as your last race. And this is the way how cruel this business can be. And I guess they're going into the youth movement. They have Chris Buescher in the fold, who they've signed on. It was once a product of Roush Fenway Racing. I don't think there's just no positioning for him. So JTG Daugherty signs him to an extension. Looks like he's in their plans. At one point, it was rumored that both guys could be gone. But I think they're going all in on Buescher. They're going to build around him. And Ryan Preece is the rumored innuendo guy to take over the car. Preece would be a fresh face for JTG Daugherty. Absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that. It could ignite a fire in this team. And I don't expect this team to run really well next year either. With Ryan Preece or Chris Buescher, I think there's still going to be a lot of growing pains, a lot of kinks to work out. And I think this team has to align themselves with someone else other than RCR. I think RCR, RCR, legendary name. What they did with Dale Earnhardt Sr., but that's faded memories. That's years ago. RCR has not had fast cars. RCR has not been a top-tier team in a number of years. So JTG Daugherty could benefit again from aligning with the Hemric, or I know they used to run Toyotas, another manufacturer change, maybe go to Ford. They just got to get their performance better. I don't care who's running their cars. I just think this is not on A.J. Allmendinger. This is not on performance. This is not on A.J. Allmendinger's ability as a driver. This is that this team is putting out junk. I don't want to be so critical of them, but call for what it is. When your top finishes this season have only been at Daytona, Talladega, you're not putting out the cars that are going to compete on a week-to-week. I don't care who's in that car. You're just not going to compete if you're not giving the right circumstances and you're not putting in the effort and you're not setting up these cars to where they could compete. And that's not an excuse. It really isn't, because I know Stewart Haas Racing is doing well. JGR, I'm really getting hot from this because I think that this is the bullshit move from a team that's going to part ways with a guy who I think is a good fit for this team and has gotten this team a lot of exposure just based on those road course races, that he could win those. He could make it to the playoffs. He got your team to the playoffs. His team was going nowhere before this. Remember that. He was brought in to change the culture, did that to an extent. There's only so far he could go. Those stats I just read that he's pulled off here, I'm sorry for getting hot, but I just don't think he should be out of this car. Don't think so for a guy, and it's nothing on Ryan Preece. It's a great story. As we all know, Ryan Preece, a standout in the Wheeling Modified Series, 2013 champion, 22 wins there. He's won 2 Xfinity races at Iowa and Bristol for Joe Gibbs Racing. And Ryan Preece was running some lackluster equipment at the start of his career. He's got 5 Cup starts, the defunct 98 car. And that was, like I said, start and park effort, or a team that just not a top-tier team, so they're going to run in the back. Preece has 5 starts to his name in Cup. The 2 wins with Joe Gibbs and Xfinity. Again, those are Xfinity races. Is Ryan Preece going to come in here and turn this thing around? I mean, no. So why would you not stick with Allmendinger, try to get your performance better, and make this work? And anyway, I agree with them sticking with Buescher. If they're gonna in fact do that, they might even oust his ass. Who knows? But I would build around him and make this team a younger team. If that's your objective is to rebuild and make this a younger squad, then do that. But just make sure you're giving these guys better cars, much better equipment than what you've been giving them. And here's the press release, as I said, I'll read this from JTG Daugherty Racing. Didn't fumble it up that time. No snafus there. So it says, AJ Allmendinger has been a valuable asset to the growth of our company. So true. And we are grateful for his professionalism with our brands and the passion he has shown for this race team over the years. Absolutely. That statement, dead on. This guy is showing you a lot of passion and he's a lot of fire. Again, don't understand it. So, Tad Sector, as the owner, one of the owners of JTG Daugherty, as hard as it may be, we're moving in a different direction for the 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup season, and we'll be parting ways at the end of the season. It's not an easy decision, and a change is never easy. We wish him the very best in his endeavors, and he will always be family to us. You wish him best in his future endeavors. You got fired. That's pretty much what that says. Bullshit, but we'll move on. So Allmendinger, where does he go from here? Hopefully he deserves much better than this and gets better than this. He's had a longevity in his cup. He survived the whole debacle with Red Bull Racing. That was a whole shitstorm in 07 and 08. Getting that off the ground. RPM, when it was the incarnation of Gillette Evernham to Richard Petty Motorsports, had some phenomenal runs in that car too, the 43, from 08 to 11. And then we all know about his suspension at Penske in 2012, and that was a golden opportunity for him as well. He seems to just he bites the bullet a lot, and he worked his way up with James Finch. The 51 car had some good runs in some underfunded equipment, some really weak equipment at the time in 2012 and 13, and then got a chance at redemption here with JTG in 13, and now it's all coming to an end. Where does he go from here? There's not a lot of seats open in Cup right now, so two options. And this is me freestyling on what's going to happen to AJ Allmendinger. He gets another Cup ride. Might not be at the level of JTG. It could be better, too. I mean, he could get better equipment. Could do something part-time. Whatever the case may be. Could do something in Xfinity. Could do something in the trucks. It's not out of the question. But what about a return to the open wheel series? And I think he has 5 career wins in kart. And that all came in 2006. That was a breakthrough year for him. He finished third in the standings. And I said that if kart didn't go under, if Champ Car was still able to survive and keep its head above water and continued, we could be talking about AJ Allmendinger, not even in NASCAR at all, but as one of the top open wheel stars in America, and putting his name up there with Dario Franchitti, Will Power, Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Elio Castroneves, all those big names, Sam Harness Jr., all those huge names that made it in the IndyCar series or open wheel in America. You could put AJ Allmendinger in that conversation had he stuck in the open wheel ranks. Had that survived, he could have been multiple-time champion, without a doubt. So he ran 6 races for Roger Penske in the IndyCar series in 2013. And is an Indy return in his future? I mean, he's at age 37 next year. I mean, is that a marketable guy, someone that you want to market to your sponsors who's 37, as this is a much younger man's sport, how it is shaping out in Cup and another series that the youth movement is on the rise. But Allmendinger still has a lot left, I think. I think he's a competitive driver. He's done phenomenal and has done above and beyond in some of the weakest equipment in the garage in NASCAR in his career. And he's never really had, aside from the Penske deal that just ended really prematurely with that suspension for performance enhancing, whatever the case was, a supplement, whatever he was suspended for. Nonsense in my opinion as well. However, aside from that Penske deal, Red Bull, this is not disparaged to anybody, but Red Bull, RPM, James Finch, Phoenix Racing, JTG Daugherty, these teams are not Hendrick. These are not the Hendricks. These are not the Gibbses of the world. So what he did in those cars and compete and even have a chance to win with JTG Daugherty says a lot about Allmendinger as a driver. And I think it's just not, it just wouldn't be fair to close the book on AJ just yet. I think AJ deserves another opportunity, whether it be cup level, maybe an IndyCar team gives him an opportunity. I would like to see him back in the open wheel ranks and winning some races real soon. So we'll switch here as we talk about Daniel Suarez. He's been just the darling of the headlines over the past month or so, has he not? He's now the leading candidate for Stewart-Haas on the 41 car. He's emerged as the top candidate. Eris, the current sponsor with JGR, is a JGR sponsor, but has expressed a lot of interest in sticking with Suarez at some capacity. And as I said, for Stewart-Haas Racing, the 41 car, a team that has struggled mightily over the last few years to maintain sponsorship for that 41 car and the 14 car, bringing in Daniel Suarez and these sponsorships he could attract. And look what he did for Eric Almirola, who's of Cuban descent, and Almirola of Mexican descent. This is good to have that international flavor in NASCAR, but on a team like Stewart-Haas Racing, who has an aging demographic. As we know, their other two drivers in the stable are getting up there in their years, and this is a tremendous opportunity to start the rebuilding at Stewart-Haas. You bring in a guy like the 2016 Xfinity champion Daniel Suarez, who has a tremendous upside. Out of any of the free agents out there, I'm choosing Daniel Suarez over any of them. This is the guy I want to drive my car, and I think Stewart-Haas Racing will make a strong effort to sign him and the sponsors he could bring to them at some capacity. And he was also linked to, rumored and innuendo, to been talking to RCR, Richard Childress Racing. To me, I don't know if that would have been an entirely good move either. However, that's a team that I think could use a change and try something unconventional, maybe to get their program in the right direction. But they're leaning towards hiring Daniel Hemric, their Xfinity Series driver. We'll get to him in a minute. But Daniel Suarez, if he, I think we all felt bad when we heard what happened with Furniture Row and that Martin Truex Jr. is going to be the successor here. And you feel bad for Daniel at the moment because, this is a guy that never really got an opportunity to show what he was made of in the 19 car. Had some flashes of brilliance. The second place at Pocono stood out to me. Looked good in the car, in increments in time that looked amazing in that car, and led the Joe Gibbs crew at some point. It was the best Joe Gibbs car out there on a few occasions. And there was just not a large enough sample size to see what he had. So, he was linked to the Levine family team in the 95 car with help from Gibbs as an alliance. But just to go from that this could work out better for him than expected. If he ends up with Stewart-Haas Racing in the 41 car, that's a car that's won races. This won the Daytona 500 a few years ago. This puts Daniel Suarez's career into a whole other stratosphere. This gives him a golden opportunity to, maybe see what Gibbs passed up on. I just think that if he is going to be out, and let's just say it's not if, he is out. They just haven't officially announced something yet. Those kind of things with sponsors take time, and we know he's gone. And this could work out in favor of Suarez, and also for Truex Jr. As I said, this is a tremendous opportunity to make one of the superpowers in NASCAR even stronger. And it looks like it might work out for old Daniel Suarez, as much we were going to feel sorry for him and say, well, I think his career could be finished. Well, his career could be just getting started. Ty Dillon, as we talked about RCR, has confirmed that he's sticking with his commitment. He's sticking to his commitments. He's going to be a man of his word and stick it out with Germain. I know there's been a lot of growing pains, and this team has really had little to no success on the track. And that's nothing to, it's nothing disparaging to Ty Dillon. It's just this team, for whatever reason or another, has not gelled. But he's not going to be going to the 31. He said he's going to commit to Germain, stay there, will not be racing for the family team in 19 as speculated by a few sources. And Daniel Hemric. So here we are. The currently second in Xfinity standings is now the leading candidate to take over the 31 car. Not sure about the sponsorship deal, what Caterpillar is doing, as they indicated a few weeks ago, again, through the rumor innuendo mill, that they wanted to stay with Newman. They would prefer Newman in 31, but now that's not the case. As we know, Newman is no longer going to be there. And so it seems like Daniel Hemric is going to be the successor here to Newman and take over the 31 car in 19. But what concerns me at Hemric, he's at the fourth in the standings in 2017, but through this season, 60 starts in RCR in the Xfinity Series, he's got no wins, 20 top fives, 33 top tens, and 3 poles. So is that good numbers? What stands out to you, and stands out to me, is the no wins. He hasn't won a race. And I know Xfinity's competitive when you have the Cup guys in there, and the level of competition there has just risen in the last 2 years. Hemric hasn't won a race, and you're going to move him to Cup, which to me is just, even though the field's smaller now, and a lot of the legends of the past and the big names, the future Hall of Famers, have stepped aside, and a lot of drivers are taking on limited roles now. They're stepping away. If you don't have the experience, especially with a team that is on the decline, I don't know if putting a guy with such limited experience is a great idea. That's sort of, it's taking a step back is what it is. It's a recipe for disaster. And one Cup start at Richmond for Hemric. He's going to be at the Roval this week. So it'll be 2 starts for him. The first one was complete disaster, a complete shit show. Clusterfuck. And in 50 Truck Series races, again, no wins. So this Daniel Hemric should flash as a brilliant. He's impressed somebody, especially Richard Childress, enough to consider him to put him in a Cup car with no wins and 50 starts in the truck and 60 in the Xfinity. Not a good move. If RCR wants to turn it around and sort of breathe new life into their organization, you have to make better driver choices. Austin Dillon, I know Austin Dillon has won 2 big races. He won the Coke 600. He won the Daytona 500. These are on strategy. These are on pit strategies. So RCR wants to be a gimmick team and rely on strategy and play it like a video game. Well, we're just going to stay out here and on old tires or pull a fuel mileage gamble. Then that's how you're going to get into playoffs. What's the sense of getting into the playoffs? You're not going to compete. It's like the 8 seed in basketball. If you're going in the NBA and you're in the West, you're the, I don't know, let's say the Minnesota Timberwolves, or you're the Utah Jazz, an upstart team with a lot of talent and youth on their side. When you're taking on the mighty Warriors in the first round, what do you think is going to happen to you? Get out the brooms. I just think this is a poor choice if Hemric does end up. And it's not that I'm shitting on Daniel Hemric. I don't know a lot about him, honestly. I've not really followed his career. He sort of just burst onto the scene there a few years ago, racing for Brad Keselowski's truck team. Was making some headway there. Gets promoted to the Xfinity Series with RCR. I know very little about this guy. But from what I have seen, and the statistics, he's got no wins in any series. So how do you graduate to the top tier of your sport and the highest level, the most competitive series in NASCAR, and you got no wins? Okay, RCR, so you're allergic to winning. Is that what it is? You're just making another silly choice, and don't get the logic behind that one when you got other free agents out there, like a Jamie McMurray, Kurt Busch, proven winners. So the drivers out there that can get the job done. Trevor Bayne, for even that matter, I would say would be a better choice. But maybe, I don't know, maybe he's got something. Maybe he's got us all fooled. Richard Childress, maybe this Daniel Hemric is going to come in and change the landscape of RCR and turn this into a winner. Who knows? But the lack of experience concerns me, and I think I'm not in favor of this. I think there's better drivers out there. That's just my 2 cents for what it's worth. Take it for what it's worth, but that's what I think. So now, instead of, as this point, we're going to be waving the white flag here on the program today. We're going into the 5 drivers to watch. It was our last segment of our program. But the Roval, we have no sample, we have no notes. So who do you pick? No one's ever raced this surface before. So let's talk a little bit about the Roval. So this is the new road course that will be raced on in a competitive environment for the first time. So how long is this Roval? Well, it's 2.28 miles, 17 turns. There is an elevation change, so there's a 35 feet for comparison. Sonoma is 160 feet. Watkins Glen is 124 feet. They're a different style of road course than the 2 traditional ones the Cup Series has run off here. So the length of the races, the Cup race is going to be 109 laps, 400 kilometers, 248.52 miles. This is the longest of the 3 road courses of the year, and it will go in stages as the races do: 25 laps, and 59 laps. So it could come into some fuel strategy here if someone is trying to sneak their way into the next round of playoffs, or one of the non-playoff drivers wants to pull off an upset win and put themselves in the history books and win the first ever race at the Roval. So combining the 2 words together, I know we do that a lot. It's kind of cute or whatever, but the Roval. So the term is Roval, as used from road course and oval. It's kind of obvious. It's been used for several years to describe road courses that include portions of the existing oval, much like Indianapolis, the infield there in Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So the Charlotte went out as far as a trademark, although it doesn't exist before this weekend. And so this is going to be in the infield portion that extends from the end of pit row that takes you to the hard left and weaves through the infield between turn 1 and 2. And the cars will return to the oval for just before turn 1. So there will also be a pickup that chicane made of curbing where the cars will run to the apron and back up the track. So this will help the tire wear by rubbing this this will help the tire by scrubbing the speed. And there is another chicane just before the start-finish line. The grass in that area, all the grass in the tri-oval area, would now be synthetic turf. So is there any special rules here? It says in this press release about the actual Roval, it says NASCAR doesn't plan on using the front stretch chicane on the start or the restart. Several drivers have said that NASCAR will need to enforce some type of significant penalty for anyone who tries to cut the front stretch chicane, as there will be a temptation to cut it for positioning late in the race. And if a driver misses or attempts to shortcut the chicane, it will be a pass-through penalty or 30-second penalty, and the pass-through can't be if the pass-through can't be served. So the question of what defines shortcutting. The chicane is not totally clear, and it is expected to be one of those NASCAR, when we see it, it's at their discretion. So another thing about this, so why are all the drivers a little bit panicked about this new structure? There's a little runoff area where the drivers if they make a mistake compared to Sonoma or Watkins Glen, the near 90-degree first turn on the restart is going to be very difficult if anyone tries to double file, and it requires a ton of brakes and the rest of the time. So going from slow speed to the high speeds for the rest of the infield could frustrate some of the drivers, and it did in the test. And the backstraight chicane has curbing design for drivers to respect the turn and not try to jump over the curbs, and they could present 2 issues. The curbing could serve as a launching pad if a driver misses a turn or has mechanical issues, or if a driver gets in trouble in the facing the inside wall 3 there, is a quick hard slam into the tire barrier with the concrete wall behind it, as you saw Brad Keselowski do that in one of the tests. And then there is an element on whether the driver wants to maximize the speed on the oval portion or the road course portion. Maximizing speed on the oval means likely evil handling car in the infield portion. So that sounds like quite the adventure these drivers are going to be embarking on Sunday afternoon at this Roval. What an enigma this is going to be. And if in the event of rain, NASCAR does have rain tires, isn't expected to, but they're expecting not to, wanting to use them unless absolutely necessary due to the high speeds and the actual unpredictability of this structure. And they'll be watching for any water puddles or anything on the track. And it is not equipped to run at night. As we know, Charlotte Motor Speedway has lights. So if there's any significant weather delays on Sunday, this race would not be run under the lights. And the biggest difference from the traditional road course is that it contains within an oval. So the fans in the seats in the travel, especially towards turn one, can see pretty much the entire track. And that is very rare for road course races. As I've seen some races in Montreal, on the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, as I said, road course, watching a road course race in person can be quite the challenge. So since we don't really have anything to put this up against or to go on from notes, so the 5 drivers you should watch, obviously I'm going to put the big 3 in there. They've all they've all won road course races in the past, including Kyle, Truex JR, and Harvick. These are the top 3 guys in the sport. They're going to rise to the occasion. Kyle Busch can pretty much win anything. Winning here would just cement his name in the record books that he's already done. And I could see big things for Kyle Busch. Could win the Roval. AJ Allmendinger, as I mentioned earlier in the program, he's has some hurt feelings. He's on the way out of JTG Daugherty. What a way to stick it to your former employer, soon to be former employer, win the Roval, maybe gets noticed. Somebody signs him for 19. And I'm going to say Jimmy Johnson. Let's put Johnson in here because, as I said, there's a lot of Johnson magic in the air when we go to Charlotte. Seems to know how to win at this kind of place. And I think Johnson is a tremendous driver. Winning the Roval would be freaking amazing for him. And it would be great send-off for Johnson, I think, for the end of the season and to maybe be a short morale boost for him. Stave off elimination for another week. So I'm going to wave the checkered flag on this episode. Been an extremely busy week. I hope everyone out there has had a nice week and continues to enjoy the playoffs. And this is race number 3, and we're going to get fired up for round number 2 next week. Dover, Delaware is coming. So I just want to tell everybody out there, thank you for listening. And continue to support this podcast. You can find us on Podbean, soon to be Google Play, Spotify. We are on Apple iTunes, and I will post links to social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, and you can find this podcast. And hopefully next month we can have a poll and maybe see what we can do for some bonus episodes. But we have 2 more coming your way. The MBNA 400 from 2001 and 1998, the Martinsville race where Ricky Rudd was victorious and kept his win streak alive for 1 more year. It ended the next year, spoiler alert, but we knew that anyway. So until then, I just want to say one, in the great words of Marcus Stroman, never panic, just manage. And until next week, I will see ya.